Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Just My Type webinar, a webinar that is going to help you better understand your maker business type and learn a little bit more about our Jumpstart program. We're really excited about this broadcast today and being with all of you. I'm Sharon Fain. I'm the founder and co-director of Academy of Handmade. And the person next to me is Isaac Watson, co-director and partner in crime with me. We're so glad to have you joining us today. We're going to do a little bit of introductions as we wait for people to trickle in. While we are waiting for everyone to sign on, I would love for you all to, in the chat, introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about you. Let us know your name, your business name, what you make, and where you're from. And hopefully you guys will be able to connect with each other and learn a little bit more about other makers that are also on this journey in the chat. I already see that Lori has already started off letting us know she's from Mooresville, Indiana. Hi, Lori. Where in Indiana is Mooresville, and what do you make? We'd love to know that too.
It's fun to see people I don't know in here.
Yeah. Waiting. Let us know. While we're also waiting, if you want to go ahead and there's an area right below the screen. One of the titles is polls, and there's a little number 2 next to it. If you click on that, it will bring up the poll for today. If you want to go ahead and take that.
Yes, please. And while you're introducing yourselves, I'm going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So if you are new to Crowdcast or haven't been here in a while, here's a rundown of how it works. In the chat area on the right, that's where you're all saying hello and telling us where you're from and what you make. That's great for chatting with other participants as we go. But below the video area, you'll see the Ask a Question button, which is the best place for you to ask questions that you want us to cover during the Q&A period at the end. If you see someone that's already asked a question that you like, that you'd also like to ask, you can upvote it, and that will push it toward the top of the list. So it looks like Lori's from just southwest of Indianapolis, and she knits and crochets and sews everything fur. Ooh, wow, okay. That looks exciting. Crafty Kitty Productions. What else? Sharon mentioned the polls down below the video as well. We'd love for you to answer those real quick. They're super easy based on the quiz that you hopefully already took. If you're joining us and watching via Facebook Live or YouTube Live, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments of those channels, but just know that we may not see them immediately because we're doing this, we're starting the broadcast from Crowdcast, so that's where our attention is focused. If there's anything we didn't cover that you asked about in the comments, we will answer those as soon as we can by following up after the webinar. So if you're just joining us now, welcome. This session is all about learning more about your maker business type. As Sharon said, I'm Isaac Watson, her partner in crime, and the one who tends to like to make her laugh really loud. And if you're watching the replay right now, if you're watching this after the fact, we're glad you could check it out, and we hope you find it valuable. So
a couple more introductions in here. Lori was commenting on that it wasn't supposed to be fur, it was supposed to be for, but it made
oh. I was trying to imagine fur for every season.
Yeah, I was like, crochet fur. Okay. We also have Sid from Seattle. She has watercolor paintings on kitchen art items, tea towels, mugs, etc. Barbara from Foraged. She designs and makes home decor from reclaimed materials, and she's from Massachusetts. Teresa is on here from People's Miner in Pennsylvania. She said it's in the Philadelphia area. Along with her husband, Timothy, they own Urban Essence Salon and Spa, and they make handcrafted bath and body products. They've been in business for about 14 years now. Awesome.
Wow. That's a veteran business.
Yeah. She is Wear the Past, and she has upcycled art, jewelry from antique and vintage bits, and a new line inspired by a secret Victorian trend. She's from Southern California. Hi, Shelly. Awesome. We'll keep introducing yourselves with fun fur. Okay. It is based on her love of cats. Rochelle is on here too. Hi, Rochelle. So continue to introduce yourselves in that chat area as we get started in here. We are going to start, I guess, right now, Isaac.
I was just getting ready. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I know I always hate dragging it out for people who are in early, but they also hate it when like people, you know, they're just starting to get in. They're just getting the notifications. So, okay, we'll start and we'll talk a little bit about this webinar, who we are, and what the program is all about. So, if you are wondering what us two nerds are doing here. We have both been working with makers for years, supporting thousands of makers through various programs that we have both worked on separately and together. And together we work on Academy of Handmade, which offers support for handmade businesses through our private community and programs designed to help you gain clarity in your business and make progress towards your goals. The program that we're talking about today is Jumpstart Your Handmade Business, which is a culmination, it's a totally new program for us of seeing so many makers getting lost and stuck because they really don't understand where they're at and where they want to be. Rochelle says she loves the quiz. It was super helpful, so that's awesome.
We hope it is super helpful. We think it is super helpful. So you might be wondering, you know, why did you guys create this program in the first place? We both acknowledge that it's pretty different from other programs that you find out there for maker businesses, and in the same way, there's, you know, it's just kind of unique. The thing is, we see too many people trying to make businesses happen that they don't want or need, or that even really make sense for what they do.
Definitely. We get asked all the time from people who have what is basically whiplash from trying to pay attention to all the different latest and newest things out there. And it's hard if you're just starting out to know what to pay attention to. And it's hard because everyone seems like they're an expert and knows more than you. The internet can be a really shouty place sometimes, which is one of the reasons why newer handmade businesses can often wind up feeling overwhelmed and isolated. People are always trying to figure out, where should I start? What resources will help me? Which are best for where I'm at right now? And who can I trust? And we also often see makers totally unaware of some of the great resources available to them. This is something that I think was reinforced to us when we were at Craftcation this year in Ventura, and we hosted these think tanks. And a lot of times makers would ask about things, and for us, we kind of, you know, take for granted knowing some of this stuff, but there's a lot of resources out there that people just really have no idea about, or they know about a resource that is actually probably not either right for them or even a very good one.
Exactly. And, you know, it's hard because you don't always know what you don't know. And that can sometimes lead to either binging on education or just spiraling into analysis paralysis. More education isn't usually the antidote to this problem, and it doesn't really give you the clarity and confidence that you need if you aren't using it right or you don't have a plan for it. So that's why, as Sharon and I revamped our programming this summer, we felt it was really important to create a program that gave a foundation to our mentorship and mastermind programs.
Totally. Our mentorship and mastermind programs, we've been running them already in our private community, and they've been so helpful. But we realized that, to back up a little, that some people are not yet ready for these. They're about mastering new business concepts and skills in community. But when you're working with a mentor or a group of seasoned peers, having a foundation that includes a plan and direction is just vital to making the most of those experiences. So this is not to say those experiences are not great things. This is not to say that courses are not great things. It's more just to say that those things do not help you unless you really understand how all of this sort of like works together. So we created Jumpstart to help you understand where you're right now, which is key to any progress. It is going to help you clarify your goals, expose you to resources we know that are trusted, and support whatever path you choose for your business, and let you confidently say no to programs that you don't need.
Exactly. So when you know what you need to get out of courses and education and where you're going, it becomes easier to make sense of all the information that's out there and achieve your goals faster without wasting time. And that's what the quiz was all about. I know some of you are already talking about it in the chat there, and we probably sound like a broken record at this point, but we sure hope you took the quiz. And I just realized I missed some things on the slides. Take the quiz. There we go.
Yes, academyofhandmade.com/quiz. Take it right after this, or stop this broadcast right now and go there and take it, and then just watch a replay, whatever you want to do. Before we talk about the 4 maker types that are in the quiz, we want to make it super clear, and we said this already in there, but there are no judgments about these types. You need to find the type that works for you, and we want to acknowledge that there are common pitfalls with all of them. But really, if you want to have a hobby business the rest of your life, we support that. This is nothing to do with them being ranked or them being, you know, levels of better to worse or something.
That's right. Okay, so you've taken the quiz. If you haven't at this point, you're going to stop and you're going to go take it, and then you're going to come back and pick right up where you left off. And you should have at the end of that quiz 2 maker business types, one for the business that you currently have and one for the business that you want. So those 4 types of maker businesses are hobby, jobby. There's a 1-letter distinction, but there's a big distinction between them. Sustainable and career. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into what each of those mean.
Before we do, go ahead, if you have not taken the poll yet, right below here, take the poll and let us know which one you are, just because it's going to help us gauge even how we talk to you guys a little bit today. So take the poll and see where you are going, and just kind of even see where other people are at too in the chat. So, but first, let's talk about the hobby business. This is not really a business totally, because while you might be selling things, you really aren't doing it with a lot of, for lack of a better word, seriousness. It's really about the enjoyment of your craft and making a little bit of money on things that you're going to make anyways. You're not thinking about profit. You're really not thinking about your audience. You're not thinking about how long it takes to make the product versus how much you're pricing it at, etc. 35-cent listing fees on Etsy are not a gamble, so it's just kind of easy to throw things up on there. If you're doing a local craft show or farmer's market, paying, you know, $65 or whatever, is also not about money necessarily. It's as much about a fun experience as it is going and participating anyways. It looks like, yeah, most of you in here are not at the hobby level, and that's fine too, whether you are or aren't. But this is a pretty common place, I think, to start out. So don't feel like people aren't at the hobby level in here. Doesn't mean that that's not where they, you know, were before. And I think a lot of people would, who open a shop and then close it down and then reopen it again, tend to have been starting with a hobby business. And I feel like I see that a lot in Etsy seller groups where somebody was in a hobby business. They kind of were not really seriously going after it as a business. They kind of just threw some things up on Etsy, and then they realized, you know, money wasn't really coming in, and it kind of wasn't regular, and it wasn't really fun anymore. So they just closed it down, and then they reopened it again because they're like, you know, as some people have said, I'm not going to let this thing beat me. I want to keep doing this. I'm really serious. And they sort of like buckle down and move forward. So I think that initial try is often hobby. And then I think going on after that, tends to be more jobby or sustainable.
Yeah. So let's go through some of the characteristics of a hobby business. They would include only selling on Etsy or at craft shows and farmers markets, if selling anywhere. Typically, they're underpricing their work relative to other makers, and if they're underpricing, it's usually severe underpricing. They're DIYing everything. They're not really tracking money in or money out. They're concerned with sales and how many sales they get, but not necessarily with the profits that they're bringing in from those sales. They're focused on one or two products, or sometimes one or two product categories. They might be giving away more product to friends and family than they're actually selling. They're not bothering with income taxes because it would for sure be negative. And when it comes right down to it, they would be making the stuff anyway, so they don't really worry about money. Money is kind of a nice bonus or icing on the cake.
Definitely. Which is why this level tends to be a lot less stressful than a jobby level, because it's really all about the making. So looking at the poll in here, it looks like we have a couple people who are in the hobby category. 6 people are in the jobby, 5 people are in sustainable, and 1 person is in career. If you haven't cast your vote yet, go ahead and put it in the poll right now.
Awesome. So the next type of maker business that we're going to look at is called a jobby business. And I'm going to guess that, wait, how many did you say we had in the poll that were a jobby right now?
6. So that's the highest category in there right now.
Yes, that's kind of what we were thinking. So jobby is one of the maker types that we tend to encounter most often with the people that we work with. If you have a jobby and you are starting to think about things, if you have a jobby, you're starting to think about things like price more, you're understanding that craft shows require a bit more strategy, and that making your booth feedback isn't the same thing as breaking even. If any of you have been through that mentality, or you know why that math doesn't work out, throw out the answer in the chat and you'll get some bonus points. We tend to see the most tension and frustration happening around being a jobbyist because you aren't quite making money in a real profitable sense. You're learning social media and marketing, but you don't fully understand how they play into things per se. And there's some tension around deciding if you want to just stay on Etsy for your online sales or have your own website.
The characteristics of a jobby business usually include pricing is underpriced, but it is more at least paying for supplies. But you're probably not figuring out overhead yet and how to pay yourself. But it at least you're not necessarily losing money on the stuff you're buying to make the stuff that you're selling. It's usually not priced for wholesale. You're usually just still learning a lot. So mostly free education online, just starting to learn the basics of everything. And if you do purchase education, you're usually purchasing it for short-term gains and learning specific skills and not necessarily strategy. You're easily moving in and out of business, which kind of means like if you need to close your shop and do it for a long period of time, it's not a big deal because you're not really missing money at that point. It tends to be a risk-averse level, and you're often not focused on numbers that attribute to sustainability, which basically are sales and pricing. And it's usually part-time hours and wages, but it's not fully being kept track. And you're still really here to make. Making is the thing that is justifying this hobby that you have.
So I want to be honest with you guys, and I do not mean this as an offense or judgment about this type, but most people don't aspire to being a jobby. It's really challenging to run a jobby business and not get burned out, often because people are pushed into this from being a hobby business. You know, when your friends and family are saying, yeah, you know, you should really sell this on Etsy. You could make so much money off of this. That'd be great. Or you really actually want a sustainable business, but you have some things you still need to master from a strategy standpoint to make that happen. The good news is you just need a game plan for getting to the next type that you want.
Definitely. And this is a good time to note that if you have a question on any of these types, please make sure to put it in the questions area below the screen. If it's in the chat, we're going to miss it. And the questions are going to be answered right after we're done talking too. So, and we want to get to all of your questions about these types. So the next type is sustainable. And I think this is the one that makers actually aspire to have as a business. Most makers at this type most makers like that are professional that we encounter have a handmade business that's like this. It's a very nice part-time job. It's making them money, but they're also probably doing something else. Like more like this maker business of theirs fits into like a larger business income portfolio that they have. So it's, you know, they might also be teaching their craft. They might be freelancing or even have a totally different day job. And I think the most common mistake we see is that a lot of people are at the jobby status and they're trying to push themselves really hard to be career. And they really just need to make a few tweaks to get to sustainable.
I think that bears repeating, Sharon, because we see it time and time again where people think that they want a career, but they don't realize how solid a sustainable business type is and how attainable that is versus the intensity that's needed to actually go all in and be a career business. So some of the characteristics of a sustainable business are you've mastered your pricing for the most part. You've at least started to wholesale, and you can do so without losing money on most of your items. You're becoming less reliant on craft shows and Etsy. You have a diversified product line. You're still doing the bulk of the work, but you are paying for services or for a little help here and there to make your life easier. You're paying for courses and education. If you have to close down your shop, it means putting some reliable income on hold. You're taking very calculated risks or micro risks with your business. You're starting to build a business identity away from Etsy and shows. You're understanding more about what drives sales and the mechanisms to create revenue in your business. Profits are largely going to you as the owner of the business. You're working what amounts to a part-time job wage, but sometimes you're working full-time job hours, especially around the holidays when things get crazy. And lastly, you're finding business to be interesting, the process of running a business, but you're really more interested in the making and creating.
Totally. And just as we're going through what these types are, just remember these are not totally definitive. It's just to help you guys get a good sense of where you're at, and you might not fit into everything in this category. That's fine. Or however else, it's not a checklist where you have to fit, you know, do every single thing. And some of you definitely might be overlapping or sort of in an in-between stage between the types too. So just know that that's also a possibility. I think the quiz, taking that will probably really help you get more clarity on that if you haven't taken it.
Take the quiz.
Yeah, take the quiz. I also want to mention, I think that there are a lot of popular, and I kind of said this before, or known makers that we see that people admire their brands that are like, oh, these are people that are, you know, I think on the quit your day job part of Etsy sometimes, and they've quit it kind of, but there's definitely other stuff going on besides just actually just making the product, right? So I think people often see makers that get featured and are, you know, quote unquote famous, and they're like, oh, they must just have, you know, totally be doing nothing else but just enjoying their time making and then just throwing it up on the internet, and the profits and money are just rolling in. And it's usually a little bit more complicated than that. So I think people might think those people might be in a career, and it's actually not. Or even sometimes people have, I know like John Hewitt, for example, had a job doing HR consulting for a long time as she was getting her I think she might still, I don't know, as she was getting her business off the ground too.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really an important distinction. The business type that appears on the outside is not always what the actual business type is on the inside. So our perceptions and what we see with our peers and the people that we aspire to be as makers, people we look up to, it's what they're projecting outwardly is not always what's going on inside their business. So let's talk about what a career business type actually looks like. And like we mentioned in the last section, and like Sharon was saying, a lot of people want this to be their business or where their business ends up, but I don't think a lot of people really understand the realities of what it takes to get there. At a career level, you have to be dedicated to your business, all in, rain or shine. It's intense.
Definitely. And I think often another thing that's overlooked with the career business is that people often either they have a staff underneath them or they have a partner or they're a part of some kind of collaborative where they're not completely dependent on themselves doing every single part of the business. The same way that I think, a sustainable might be way more involved in that. Like if you're at this level and you're pumping out a lot of stuff and doing it full time, it usually is going to take some help in some other areas in a bit of a more professional way, or like I said, of having a partner.
Let's dive into some of the characteristics of a career business. So if you're working at the career level, you've got your systems in place. You've got your inventory systems, you've got a production process, your marketing, all those things are working with systems. You have many wholesale accounts. Your own website is driving a lot of your business and might be the primary driver of your business if wholesale accounts are not. You have help. You're paying for help or for high-level services, and you're no longer doing certain tasks because your time is better spent elsewhere. You know your audience really well and communicate to them regularly. When you're a career-level business, you're spending a lot of time on R&D or product design instead of actual making. You're focused on growth for your business, what's next coming down the road, and forecasting. Any education needs you have are complex or focused on leadership training because you've got a team of people working for you and you need to be able to lead that team. You've taken a lot of risks at this point and made some big sacrifices to get there. And that's just part of the journey and part of how things go. Your profits are, after paying yourself, are going back into the business to grow it. You're dealing with full-time job pay with full-time hours, so you're all in all the time. Because you know your business so well, you're able to easily say, if X happens in my business, then Y will follow. And the passion for what you make is equal to the passion you have for running your business.
Another thing I think is people don't realize it takes a good bit of time to get to this type 2. Even if you have a lot of money and orders coming in, learning business and making it sustainable and figuring out how it works for you. And I want to say this because maker businesses are all very different, even if there are some discernible patterns, but they are not the sort of like one size fits all business that is necessarily like, I feel like a lot of other businesses out there too. So it takes a lot of time to learn how that functions. And it's really hard to be doing all of this and ramping things up and figuring this out while you're making your own products.
Exactly. So those are the 4 business types. Let's dive a little bit into why does this matter to know what business type you are. So if you don't know the kind of business you have or where you're headed, what your goals are for your business, that has the potential to get you into a lot of trouble. First of all, we don't want you to end up hating your craft because you don't have an understanding of what it takes to meet your business goals. And we don't want you to give up on all of the creative mojo that comes from making something that you enjoy. But most of all, we've seen cases time and time again where talented makers end up killing their business because they go all in on a career that their craft couldn't support. This is a little bit of tough love, and it may be hard to hear, especially if you think that career is what you want. But the last thing you want to do is end up burning it all down because you didn't have a clear plan in place to get there or a good understanding of what your goals actually mean.
I have a story about this. I know a woman, she was a metal stamp jewelry artist. She had invested in professional tools. Her stuff looked great. People bought it. It was appropriately priced. She had a very thoughtful craft show booth. She was taking courses. And she got burned out because while she was working at the jobby level, she wanted something that was sustainable, but her business wasn't scalable enough and she didn't have enough time to invest in making that happen. And there's just also a lot of metal stamp artists, so it can be hard to make a name for yourself and stand out. She eventually went back to being a hobby, where she just makes stuff for her friends and family and is enjoying the making and not really worrying anything about a business. I don't think this story is unique. We see a lot of people who start out in a business, try to ramp really hard forward, and because of certain things they didn't see, they waste time and money and energy struggling with a business that they don't actually want to have, or trying to make a business happen that isn't really going to happen because of how it's set up.
That's exactly right. So this woman ended up in a place she wanted to be, with a hobby that continues to sustain her love of making and makes a little money here and there. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in our book, but the issue is that she went to a lot of wasted effort in the process to pursue a business that couldn't sustain her because she didn't have a clear sense for where she could go or how to get there. And that's exactly what we want you to avoid in the first place. The Jumpstart program is designed with that in mind. It will help you gain confidence, clarity, and control of your business and your path from point A, where you are now, to point B, where you want to be. Here are some of the ways that we'll do that.
So first, we'll help you understand the right kinds of numbers that you need to look at and keep track of, so that you can keep a finger on the pulse of your business. And then we'll help you relate those numbers, because I feel like numbers just alone can be meaningless if you can't take action on them. We'll help you relate those numbers to tools and tactics that will help you take action on the areas that your numbers say, oh, this is where you need to work.
But one of the biggest things about your journey is dealing with the fire hose of resources, experts, and information out there about running your business. Like Sharon said earlier, the internet is a shouty place. So we will break down the 6 different categories of resources at your disposal and talk about when to seek each type of resource and when to avoid it, as well as how they will help you make progress depending on your business path.
In all of this, we are doing this virtual conference, which I'm super excited about, that's going to introduce you to people and organizations who have resources that we know will help you along this path. We're also going to give you access to our own resource vault that is that's been developed explicitly for makers and handmade business owners. And we're going to welcome you into our private community where you can be comfortable asking questions of your peers and receive support as you go along in your ever-evolving and progressing journey. All right, so want to see here is there are no questions yet, guys.
What?
Are there?
Does that mean we did our job really well?
Oh my gosh, I know, right? Are we ever this clear, Isaac? Go ahead and ask a question in the ask a question area right below this, because we're going to wrap up soonish. Thanks, Rochelle. Rochelle says that we are very clear.
We try to be.
And there might be questions happening on Facebook Live or on YouTube right now, because this is also broadcasting there. If you have questions in those areas, we will also get to them after this. I don't know if you've ever done a live broadcast and done it to like multiple streams. There's too much to look at unless you've got like 5 computers or like, you know, helping you. So, ooh, Shelly.
It's all I can do to make sure that the slides are going at the same time.
Here's a good question. Shelly says, are there any career models where the owner maker can still have the hands-on maker mojo? Do you want to take this, Isaac, or?
Yeah. So one of my classic examples is a friend of mine who has a jewelry business, and she's been at it for, let's see, I would say going on 10 years now. She's been out for a while. She started all by herself. She then hired a little bit of production help here and there as she needed to for the busy seasons. She had a studio space that doubled as a little retail shop. It was a street level kind of situation. And then she decided to get really, really serious about her business. She moved to a new location with a full retail storefront and a production space in the back, hired more production help. Her husband quit his job to go work on the jewelry business full time. And they're in hundreds and hundreds of stores around the world. And they've just got a killer business, and they support other makers by carrying their work in retail shops. Now, you might be saying, okay, that doesn't quite sound like the answer to my question. I think the difference here is that this woman has made it a point to still stay involved with the production process, and she's doing a lot of work around design. So she kind of segmented her jewelry into some major categories. There's just kind of like the standard stuff that she's always been making that is really easy for her to just say, okay, this is how we put these together. This is the process. Now my production people can work on this. But she's focusing a lot on research and design for new jewelry collections that are really pushing the limits of her creativity and of the work that she's doing. And she's heavily involved in that process. I know, one collection that she did was focused on the different types of bridges in the Portland area and the architecture of those bridges. And so she developed this whole line of bracelets and earrings and necklaces that honor the architecture of those. There was a lot of design process, but she got into a lot of R&D around, how to get the metal stamped in the right shape so that it could then be formed into a cuff bracelet and things like that. So she's still very involved in R&D and running the business. Her husband does a lot of the business development work and tracking numbers and things like that, because that's what he's good at. But she is still getting a lot of creative mojo out of the design work and out of working with her production artists to make sure that everything's up to snuff. So I think there is a way to do that as a career maker. It's really about paying close attention to, what tasks you can offload either to your team or to, high-level service providers, and, where you find your creative mojo and how you can continue to focus on that while running a bigger business.
I think that I would totally echo that. And I feel like I could give you 10 other businesses that are also in that same area too, right? You're usually just not participating in production, and you usually sort of have to let go and do a production with people underneath you, basically. And I think that's really hard. This is why a lot of people just want to stay at sustainable and not go to career, and that's totally fine, is that you usually have to outsource elements of your business that people still want to hold on to. So that's why I think if you're looking at sustainable or career, you are probably realizing that there are things that you have to go to and to go to the other level. And that's fine if you don't want to. I think that's totally fine. I also think it's another thing that I noticed, and what I was hearing as Isaac was talking about that is thinking about you are being at the high level stuff. So the high level stuff is R&D in that case. But I also think a lot of times the high level stuff can be, you're making more of the art pieces, the custom pieces. It makes me think of, and this is maybe this is why this shows you it's hard to sort of get into that level, but who is, oh, Thomas Kincaid, right? Like, do you guys remember Thomas Kincaid? And I think, you know, he kind of gets, you know, trashed a little bit for having, you know, overly saccharine Americana. But he was like, you know, he was in freaking malls everywhere and people were buying this art. And he really didn't paint most things. Like, he had like a whole team. Like, how could he, right? Like, he had this whole team of people that were actually, you know, painting things in his style based on what he had done originally. And then he would just go add in finishing touches at the end. But he also was making, and that was like the production stuff. That was the attainable mall art, if you will. But he was able to make money doing a lot of other stuff like commissioned work and things like that. And art school type mentality in particular really steers people away from wanting to do that, right? Like, I mean, obviously we all know, like, he had a lot of disrespect as an artist, but as a businessman, he was freaking genius. And I think that's kind of the scale that we were trying to get at in that is, and talking about how you're really interested in business, maybe a little bit more so than the, or as much as the art and making of things when you get to that level, that you're willing to make some sacrifices in that art area in order to grow your business. And I want to say that neither of those are bad. Both of those are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So Shelly,
yeah,
Shelly added, is it okay to create a path to sustainable now and to decide when I'm career, if I want to be able to make the transition to career? Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think, you know, if sustainable seems the most attainable to you right now, there's nothing wrong with going for that, and then creating a new goal once you reach that to go to career. Like Sharon said, and like I said earlier, moving to career is a very intense process. And what we talk about in the Jumpstart program is a lot around the intensity of each type and how that changes. And it takes a lot of work to get to career, but there's nothing wrong with stopping at sustainable along the way as part of your trajectory.
Yes. Thank you for that question, Shelly. That was really great. And I think a lot of other people probably are wondering the same thing. Lori asks, will social media be covered such as what, when, where, and how? Basically, no. We will talk about social media in kind of a very larger strategic context, but this is really about figuring out those core business principles and not about tactics. It's about figuring out when tactics become appropriate for you to, you know, get resources on, start to move forward on. So,
yeah, I think the key here is that we will be, instead of having you ask, you know, how do I do my social media? We're going to instead have you ask, what resources do I need to improve my social media? And then give you the tools to filter out the different types of resources to focus on pursuing those that are going to be most effective in helping you with that. So it's more about how you think about approaching resources than actually providing the resources.
All right. Okay, so there are no more questions right now, but if you do have a question, feel free to go ahead and put it in. If it's after the replay, if it's after us being live and on the replay, it doesn't notify us that there's questions in here, so we might not get to it. Where it will notify us is on Facebook. So go ahead if you have questions, put it on Facebook too. So, all right.
So we're going to wrap it up here a little bit and talk about the next steps. So the biggest next step is that we would love for you to register for the Jumpstart program. Now's your chance. You can click on the button below the broadcast that says sign up, or go to academyofhandmade.com/jumpstart to register. And I think, Sharon, if you can put that link in the chat, that would be fantastic. So we have some
right
limited...
below the button too. It's right below.
Oh, it is right below the button.
It says sign up for Jumpstart. It's right below this.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, it also gives you the links as well too.
Great. These tools are smarter than I thought they were. So we have limited hot seats left and limited upgrade packages left. But the big thing is that the early bird pricing expires Saturday night at 6 p.m. Pacific. But wait, there's more, as they say. We have a craft show bonus session with Nicole Stevenson, who co-organizes patchwork shows and helps run Dear Handmade Life and Craftcation Conference. We're offering that bonus session to anyone who signs up for the early bird package, either early bird package, before the regular price kicks in on Saturday. Now, originally we were only going to offer this to the people who upgraded, but now we want to give it to everybody because we think it's going to be really, really juicy and really helpful for people. And it's not quite something we're going to cover in the one-day conference, virtual conference.
Totally.
So there are two ways to join the Jumpstart program. Sharon's going to talk a little bit about what the different ways are, but the basic early bird package is $85 and the upgraded early bird is $135.
These are steals, my friend. This is going to, we have put so much good information into this. I really think it's going to be very helpful to you. You're going to gain a lot of clarity on your business, and you're going to get access to, no matter which one of these you do, to our private community for forever. And along with that, the Market Watch newsletter, which, I'm sorry, I live in a city, if you just heard that horn honking, that's somebody outside on the street. Anyways, right. He doesn't know I'm doing a webinar. Anyways, so all of this, $85, such a steal, and then $135 as well for the upgrade. These prices are going to definitely not only go up from this offering right now, the discount for early bird, but it's also definitely going to go up after we finished with this program. So these are all sort of like once in a lifetime pricing for this, since we are just starting new with this program. So the basic package, you're going to get the virtual one-day conference, which is packed with seasoned makers and experts, and Isaac and I helping you understand the curriculum better and your roadmap. It's going to include the Clarity Roadmap curriculum. That's a tongue twister. You'll get the resource vault. You're going to have private access to the community, and you're also going to get the Market Watch newsletter that we send out every month that has places for you to think about wholesaling to, craft shows to check out, and other online marketplaces that you might be interested in. That's the basic package. That is awesome. But if you are looking to upgrade, this has a little bit more in it. It has the virtual one-day conference, Clarity Roadmap resource vault, private community access, and Market Watch newsletter. It has the Nicole Stevenson craft show bonus session, which we're now just adding into the basic package. If you've already bought the basic, we will send you this too, so don't worry that you've missed something. But it's also going to have a special small group hot seat where you can discuss the plans and your maker business type and your roadmap, and we'll get into individual one-on-one attention a bit more and help you figure those out. So, and along with that, you'll get the State of Making archive videos as well too. So you don't have a lot of time to act on this. You've got until Saturday. $40 off the basic and upgrade packages for both of these. They go up $40 Saturday. So get on this today, tomorrow, quickly. You can click on the button below, like we said. academyofhandmade.com/jumpstart is where you can sign up.
Awesome. I just have to interject and say I'm really excited about the one-day conference in particular. I know we haven't touched on it a lot, but we have a fantastic lineup of experts and seasoned makers that will be joining us for this virtual conference. Megan Auman from Designing an MBA, Lib Ramos from Makers Collective. They do the Makers Summit and Indie Craft Parade in South Carolina. Daniel Spurge from the Meriwether Council. Maker-wise, we have Holly Marsh from Marshmuller, Tina Rodas from High Tree, and Brandy Davis from Pigsy Art, and of course the bonus craft show session with Nicole Stevenson of Dear Handmade Life, Patchwork Shows, and Craftcation Conference.
Oh, we have 2 more questions and I want to answer them really quickly.
Great.
So Chelsea says, hopefully this isn't too late. Will Jumpstart help us write a business plan? Here is how it will help you. It's going to help you write a business plan in that you will actually understand what you want out of a business. I have written business plans. We help other makers write business plans. And a lot of times they're writing these things with just sort of plugging in random numbers, and they kind of have ideas based on perceived expectations. And this goes back to, right, like the business you see on the outside is not necessarily the business on the inside. So they're modeling things after businesses that they see, thinking that that's what's going on, when that's not actually what it is. So this is sort of like a precursor to a business plan. So it will help that. That said, in our resource vault, we sort of have a maker version of what's called a one-page business plan. If you've ever heard of that, it's like a book called the One-Page Business Plan. There's like a whole thing around it. Anyways, it will help you write that. So this is sort of like the precursor to all of that. Do you have anything else to add with that, Isaac?
No, I think that's spot on. The Jumpstart is more about identifying those bigger goals that you have for your business and honing in on the resources that'll help you and the community that will help you. And that will prepare you to jump into writing a business plan in a much better way than just jumping straight into the business plan from the get-go.
Totally. If you have already written a business plan and know that that can kind of be a futile effort and it feels meaningless to your business now, I think that Jumpstart will help you realize sort of where you went wrong too. So I think, you know, if you've written a business plan or about to write a business plan, this will help you. This is a good question. Lori asks, what exactly is the hot seat? Okay, so there are 2 hot seats that are happening. Right now, there are still a few spots left on the actual live virtual conference next week that we're hosting. You can get a hot seat spot where we will pull you up and you can start to ask questions about your business with our experts, with our seasoned makers. So that is what that is right now. There's no extra charge for that. It's just limited time, limited seating. I'm sorry, can you see my dog in the back that is scratching himself? I apologize if everyone. Easy, Lunchbox, easy. Anyways, so that is that hot seat that you should snag right now because they will go away very quickly. But the other thing is that, I think we actually only have like 2 of those left right now. The other thing is for the upgrade, we have a separate session of hot seating. It's all about critiquing your business plan, critiquing your roadmap and your resource plan that we kind of go through in the curriculum and stuff. So that is sort of the next, like, I planned this. Is this right? Does this make sense? And we will help you sort of make sense of that. And that is what the upgrade really, that's the core part of what the upgrade payment is for, is doing that. So I hope that helps you understand. All right.
I have a final question for anybody who's not familiar with the State of Making. Can you describe that, what the archive videos are for that?
Yes. The State of Making is something we do every year. And we bring on experts and makers to talk about what's happening in Makerland right now. What's important? What are the trends? This last one was focused on the holidays. And it was a lot of looking back and doing, like, you know, a post-mortem and saying, where did we all struggle this holiday season? Why? And it's a good place for you to gauge, like, oh, this is happening either, like what's happening in my business is also happening in other businesses and how they're kind of working through it. But also understanding like, oh, this isn't happening in my business, but this is something I should keep an eye on. So that's what state of making is kind of all about. It's not necessarily about do this, do that, but it's about like understanding what's going on in Makerland and where your business can kind of fit into all of that. So
yeah, we've done sessions on social media, things that are happening in social media land. We've done sessions on product packaging, you know, like you said, the holiday postmortem, all kinds of stuff like that. It's a really, really great archive of videos.
Okay. Got a little off topic there, but all right. I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As we mentioned, if you are on Facebook or in YouTube, we will go ahead and try to answer all of the questions in there as possible too. If you have questions that you want to start to dialogue and get more specific on, you can definitely email either of us, Sharon@academyofhandmade.com or Isaac@academyofhandmade.com, and we will get back to you and help you figure out anything else that you're wondering about, but maybe weren't brave enough to say on here. So we really appreciate you guys. If nothing else that you've taken away from this, it is take the quiz if you have not already.
Take that quiz.
Because otherwise it's gonna not mean a lot. So all right. It was great hanging out with you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll hopefully see you later.
Bye.